Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. The German government is planning on restricting anonymous purchases of gold. Let's explore. Yes, that's right. Before we dive into this particular piece, let's go back in time, all the way back to June of 2017. I kind of had missed this. This kind of flew under the radar. It was made a mention. If there was any mention made of it, I certainly don't remember posting any videos about it or even seeing anything about it. But back in June of 2017, there was a further restriction down, lowers the limit of anonymous precious metal purchases to 10,000 euros instead of 15,000. This was back in 2017. And it is something to behold. You know, it's pretty amazing to see what's going on with what the government is doing under the guise of, money laundering. This is out of the money laundering directive, and this is their reasoning, or, well, some of us would say really an excuse for restricting these purchases. But I think this just goes to show you how much really it is, how viable, how important it is for us to accumulate precious metals and try to be as careful about it as possible and get what you can anonymously. Now, most precious metals are tracked when you purchase them online and what have you, but there are some that they are going to be cracking down, and further so with this particular piece here. We're going back here first from this particular story from DW, and this story was alerted to me by one Alan Gold. Some people call him All-in Gold, but I call him Alan Gold. He actually emailed me this story about this alarming situation here in Germany. The German parliament passes anti-money laundering laws, and real estate agents, gold merchants, and auction houses will be subject to tighter regulations in the future. Lawmakers complain that the U.S. Embassy and Apple tried to squash part of the law at the last minute. That's interesting indeed, yeah. This is dated back on December the 15th. The German parliament had passed that last Thursday a draft of the anti-money laundering measures to bring the country in line with EU directives. The reform packet imposes stricter regulations on real estate agents, notaries, precious metals dealers, and auction houses to declare transactions to prevent money laundering and terrorism financing. The law still have to go through the upper house of parliament, the Bundesrat, and they probably have done that by then. And then we have this piece, which is a bit more involved here. Talks about how after cash, the German government is planning to restrict the anonymous purchases of gold. And this is from BitcoinExchangeGuide.com. So the German government now wants to significantly restrict the anonymous purchases of gold, just like it did with cash. Officially, it is to fight money laundering, but critics fear a hidden attack on the freedom of citizens. The federal government wants to drastically lower the upper limit for anonymous gold purchases. From next year onwards, precious metal traders should have the personal details of the buyer and carry out risk analysis for an amount over 2,000 euros. The new limit emerges from a draft bill from the Ministry of Finance that still needs to be discussed in the Bundestag. So it will be enforced on January the 10th, 2020 if it's passed by that upper chamber. So currently anonymous gold purchases in Germany are capped at 10,000 euros, which we discussed earlier, with a simple 50-gram bar costing over 2,000 euros. A purchase after the new measures won't be possible without the disclosure of personal information. And now keep in mind, as of the recording of this video, gold and silver are up. In fact, gold is over $1,500 an ounce right now. The buyer has to provide proof of identity, and in the case of a company acting as a buyer, the trader needs to clarify beforehand who is the beneficial owner. Criminal background also needs to be checked with the business partners, and business relationships are examined in case the companies or individuals are from high-risk countries. And if a dealer suspects he must report the potential customers to the authorities. In failure to comply with the obligations, the trader will face severe fines. The bill is due to enter into force on the 10th of January 2020 and implement applicable EU directives on money laundering. The directive EU includes various measures, also concerns the draft bill for the German Ministry of Finance, in addition to gold market areas such as gambling, the art market, real estate, and the crypto industry. It's not the first measure intended to restrict the use of cash. 2 years ago, the general cash limit was lowered from 15,000 euros to 10,000 euros, citing the same reasons that are now being sought. At that time, critics of the measure expressed the suspicion that the legislator needed to control all the cash flows, ultimately making it easier for the authorities to enforce monetary and interest rate decisions. And keep in mind, that's one argument why people say we should use cryptocurrencies. But you think about it, cryptocurrencies are what? They are digital. And though they are cryptic in terms of the blockchain or whatever that foundation will be in the future, make no mistake, it can be tracked. And it's probably easier to track in that way than most other physical forms. If another EU country, France, rules are much stricter than Germany, where cash payments between traders or companies are subject to a general limit of 1,000 euros, and not just for the purchase of precious metals. In Spain, it is 2,500, while Italy forbids amounts above 3,000 euros. In light of that scenario, holding Bitcoins becomes even more attractive. And of course, this is coming to us from Crypto News, and I would say that, at least for now, that might be the case, but I would say holding gold is even more attractive to do that even beforehand, and I believe there will be probably an underground market to try to circumvent some of this stuff. Notwithstanding, now there is lines forming. From this Twitter account, we can see this image that there are lines forming for people wanting to buy gold. Here we go. From this organization's gold and silver, so Degussa, And so this is quite something to see. People are lining up. They want to get their gold beforehand. And if I was living in Germany, this may be one of the areas where I might even consider, going into a little bit of debt to do it as well. But it also means that if you're going to make purchases, you'll have to make those purchases under the radar and make them in smaller amounts, less than 2 ounces for sure. But nonetheless, there it is. Fascinating indeed to see this development here. And again, it should be noted, this has not passed the upper house, but telling from this line, it looks like that's probably not going to be a problem. So this will be in effect on January the 10th. So if you are a viewer in Germany, post your thoughts about this. Be curious to see what it's like for you on the ground there. And if this has affected you, if you do buy gold and what have you. It doesn't mention anything about silver. But nonetheless, it's under the threat. And it's to me, it's big government cracking down even more, because you think about it, most terrorist organizations or nefarious people, they're going to make much larger trades than that. And they'll find other loopholes, other ways, I think, to purchase gold or what have you. But to me, this just goes to show you the absolute threat that gold is to the current state of monetary system. And I think it's something that should encourage us all as we continue to press on and accumulate our precious metals. So there you go. Thanks again to Alan Gold for sending me this information. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe. I found this other information from a forum that has the same picture here, with a little bit of insight more about what that line is about. In mid-November, the German parliament decided on a package of measures to combat money laundering. And it was asked the question of Degussa, and he said that the long lines are actually based on lowering the cash limit. 98.5% of customers want to buy gold again for less than 10,000 euros without registering. Few buy jewelry or buy any other gift, said Kirsten Bocek, Degussa branch manager in Cologne. And Degussa is obviously not an isolated case. Pro Aurum also reports a large number of visitors in the last days of 2019. The line of waiting customers extends to the front of the building on the sidewalk. The company describes in its website the situation in the past days in Munich. While other retailers have already closed their shops due to a lack of goods, the employees are fighting to ensure that everyone who is interested gets coins or bars, even if it is often not exactly what the customer actually wanted to buy, continues Pro Aurum. The high demand apparently also affects the premium for coins and bars, according to a report of the industry portal Gold Reporter. The average premium for gold coins in the crude variety was 6.16% on Monday, an increase of 83% compared to October 25th this year. Now you think about that. In the case like this, where there's high demand, concentrated demand like this, spot price in a way doesn't matter. They're gonna increase that price up, and the premiums may increase. If you have a situation like that around the world, or a certain unusual demand, spot price may play not as large a role as it had in the past. So there you have it. Fascinating indeed.